It was nearing the end of welcoming night, the Saturday of the spring equinox, an important time for the folk of Navarre, a time of oath-swearing and friends remembered, of singing and smiling and dancing, a coming together after a time apart that felt longer and colder than many had, and a chance to remake ourselves and our friendships anew. A time of endings, a time of beginnings, perhaps just a time of change. The great dance writ large on our faces and in our footsteps, every one of us. The fire at Bronwyn's Rest camp was fast dying to embers. The loud shouts and singing of songs and stories in the woods were audibly winding down. It was nearly time for sleep, but not quite yet. The rustle and murmur of the Anvil camp in the late evening was a comforting, welcome change from the last few months of walking and often running. The bobbing handlights and gently glowing tents and awnings of Navarre gave way down the hill to the slowly darkening marketplace. And the opening skies above were full of gently wavering stars and wisps of cloud. A good night at the end of a good day. A night at peace. Well, mostly. Aleri was rustling in the sleeping tent, getting herself ready for bed, if not quite yet for sleep. Vasily, the Varushkin smith, and a friend to both of us, had wandered up to the fire recently and sat with me. He was talking about something, not terribly important, and I was listening and replying, but not paying 100% of my attention. It is, after all, rare that I do. It was the kind of loose, wistful conversation that people make in the late evening. It made no decisions and it asked for no plans, just perhaps a little compassion or reassurance or understanding. A conversation of the moment, to be forgotten in the next, once it had served its purpose. Enough to keep me from going to bed just yet, as I'd not seen Vasily in a year or so, I think, but my bedroll was definitely calling, and perchance soon my wife would be too. The fire flared slightly, portentously, and I became aware of a presence within the unmarked perimeter of the camp. We've never fenced our boundaries or even marked them, but there's a line in the grass that marks the edge of our space, and it's sometimes surprising how people respect it, despite it being hidden. Someone or something had entered. I realized what had caught my attention in the next moment, when it reached out and grabbed my awareness with chill, spectral hands. Fresh blood on pale skin, glittering and sparkling in the firelight as the victim? Apparition? Person stepped out of the shadows and smiled unsettlingly down at us. Horribly wounded, but serene. Feminine, changeling, I think. It's easier to tell with some than others. No one could mistake Rona's 18-inch rack of antlers for anything else, even in silhouette. But this one had feathers and the ears and maybe the spirals, but skin enough to check the spirals was hard to find amid the blood. Did I mention the blood? There seems to be a loss of it, decorating open wounds in her face and a torn, empty eye socket. Dornish, I think. Red and white robes. Could be Varushkin. but the bearing and jewellery and other markers say Dornish. I think I recognise her as one of the background folk of the Dornish camp. Never at the front of events, but always somewhere nearby. Dying. I've seen that face, that aura, that presentation. Dead, walking, clinging to life for a time, but doomed to fail. I'm a ghost, she smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. A touch of sadness perhaps, a hard glitter that might be a tear, might be a sneer, might be a scrap of what's left of her scrabbling at the inside of her to get out and be free to enter the labyrinth. What should I do? I have no answer for her. A portion of my mind is screaming for a guide, for anyone who knows how to deal with this situation. I'm no stranger to fear and death and loss, and to helping people through their final moments. But for this one tonight, I have nothing. Frozen, useless. For a few moments, I am turned entirely inward, unable to move or speak, barely able to breathe. Vasily, thankfully, is Varushkan. I don't hear all that he says over the ringing and pounding in my ears, but he has all the poise and readiness and kindness that I do not. What he says has a sense of, I think it's a warm, pleasant night.
Pleasant night, and the stars are out, and the people in this camp are having a nice time. I think you should go and experience this world for a little while. Remember your life, be thankful for it. And then I think you should let go and enter the labyrinth.
She seems satisfied. You should see House Orzel. Her smile is more complete this time, but she ducks her head and recedes into the night. I catch a couple of flashes of her walking away down the hill, I think, but my usual unconscious awareness of the people around me is as shaken as the rest of me. I might be wrong. Vasily and I stare into each other's eyes for a long moment. That, we agree, was definitely something. We return to our chatter for a little while, but now my mind is full of questions, and I find it more difficult. After a little while, Vasily walks onward. I have held others' hands as they cling to life for their final seconds, helped them to pass smoothly away and beyond. In Navarre, so often, our drawn-out deaths take one of two forms. Either we are pained and staggered, struggling to breathe, or to walk or to crawl, trying to make it home in one way or another, so that we can die with our family, whoever that might be in the moment, until suddenly we sit and fall down and are still, never to move again. Either way, the corpse glades are waiting, or the circle be turned if we are in the field and cannot bring the body home. That is how it is for us of Navarre at the end of life. I do not think I have seen other nations' way of death before. She was so peaceful, so sure. She knew she was dying, or dead, or something. And it did not matter over much to her. She claimed to be a ghost. She was never in a position where I would be able to see through her, had she been spectral. And I was not close enough to touch her skin to find out if I would pass through. I know of love as Navari do. Some loves are strong and lasting and define lifetimes. of the 2 or 3 or more that they bind. Some loves are powerful, but fleeting. A night, a week, a dance. Some have rhythm to them, forever in motion, coming together for a time, and then whirling apart, and then coming together again. Love, small l, is a complex and ever-differing thing, but it is of this world. The Dornish sometimes claim to know love differently, more so. A love stronger than death is a phrase I've heard used. Until now, I didn't think it was really a thing, or know what it looked like. Maybe now I do. So many questions.